Hello everyone and welcome back to IMO Reviews. Continuing to tick off some of those movies off my watch list that I haven't got round to yet, we are discussing one of Mrs. IMO's all-time favourites, The Lobster. Directed by Yorgos Lanthimos and starring Colin Farrell, Rachel Weisz, Ben Whishaw, Leah Seydoux, Olivia Colman and John C. Reilly. David is recently separated from his partner and now must check into this bizarre hotel for single people, where they are given 45 days to find a partner or they'll be turned into an animal of their choice. So to give you some context, I think it was a good thing that I had already seen some of Yorgos Lanthimos' work in Killing of a Sacred Deer, because it did allow me to make peace with the fact of what to expect here. This film is probably going to be quite weird, it's going to be out there in its ideas, and it isn't going to be afraid to go to some of those darker corners with its plot threads. But that's actually what I really liked about Killing of a Sacred Deer, and I can say the same about The Lobster. I found this film to be so deeply rich and clever. It delivers some really profound messaging about human nature, our dependency on each other, our need to have another person, and what exactly we're basing that relationship on. I can't express how wonderful and refreshing I found that to be. Its bizarre setting and nature never threw me off, never took me out of it. In fact, I think it actually gave the film so much more room to maneuver in, grow and develop its own ideas and explore them to their fullest. I'm always a huge fan of films that don't spoon feed you or pander to you. Nothing worse than a film that tries to be bold but then cut themselves short by saying, "Do you get it, audience? Do you get it?" Thankfully, The Lobster very much so trusts its audience, and it does so with confidence. It's presented in such a matter-of-fact way. This is what we're doing. We know it's weird, but you can either stay for the ride or you can jump off now. You're definitely going to have questions, but it's that curiosity that can keep you hanging in there. It's also worth mentioning that I thought the performances were fantastic. There's some really dry and witty humour throughout. I was surprised at how much this film had me laughing out loud. And it's with these stupid little one-liners that you never see coming, and they're delivered in such robotic cadence and tone, and it really did hit my funny bone time and time again. Colin Farrell had a knockout year in 2022. And yes, this is from 2015, but strike me down, this guy is good. Every time I see a new performance from him, I'm just blown away. He is definitely one of the best living actors of our time. I should also mention how beautifully made this film is, with wonderful slow motion sequences, matched by this really emphatic operatic music. The shadows and the lighting always seemed duller, toned down, which really did add to the atmosphere of the film, and the symmetry of several shots is just breathtaking to behold. So good it almost took me out of the film, but only to think, god damn, that must have taken them hours to set up and get it correct. I, for one, really struggle with romance movies. It is a bit of a cinema weak spot of mine. I just find that they tend to try way too hard to pull at your heartstrings without actually offering anything of substance to make you care. The relationships are often developed through montage where everyone's happy and laughing, ha ha ha, but there's no dialogue being exchanged, there's no character growth, we don't get to stick our teeth into it and actually be a part of that relationship. It's just two people looking at each other adoringly, and that's romance. And then they often just dress it up with smooth cinematography and grandiose music to punch them in the gut when we rip them apart. Yeah, the same old formula just has never worked for me. But The Lobster wasn't that at all. I understood why these relationships were being built, why they were developing the way that they were, especially in this strange added pressure of the bizarre universe of which it's set in. Desperation will make you do crazy things, people, and this movie gets that. Colin Farrell and Rachel Weisz made a really cute and believable couple. I could totally see them together in reality. And I really did buy their relationship and their love for each other, because it was in that endless search for finding a way to make their relationship work, despite the way this world works, is what made me care and made me believe that they cared about each other. Because with all of the threat of this world and all of the pressure that surrounds them, with the need of similarities that they don't necessarily have with each other, well, that would usually be the end of an endeavour of this relationship in this world. But they still pursue it together, and they go to extreme lengths to keep it going, even creating their own language so that they can communicate openly with each other, with their only hesitation ever being that the other person might get hurt from the consequences of their actions. That right there is love, and I felt that entirely. I loved just how at the film's disposal I found myself to be. I truly couldn't ever get a grasp or a feel of where we were going, because it constantly went in the least expected place. But I must admit, those least expected places were the right directions to take the film, because it allowed the narrative of the ideas to grow and expand like little offshoots off of a main branch. It really added some thought, some flavour, some complexity, and lifted this material into being a very filling 3-course meal of a film that will leave you incredibly satisfied by the end. But that being said, I'm sorry, Mrs. IMO, but I have a handful of cons. Just 2, in fact, and Mrs. IMO already knows what they are. She's not happy about this, but we're doing it anyway. I love dogs, I'm a dog lover through and through, and there is a pretty nasty scene in this film that involves the end of a dog's life, and it's not pleasant to watch. I get why it's there, it does make sense, and it is quite an important turn in the story, offering a lot of emotional development for Colin Farrell's character. So yeah, that one is very much a me problem, and this next one is also very much a me problem. I am unbelievably squeamish when it comes to eyeballs. Mrs. IMO wears contact lenses and I can't watch her put them in. It just freaks me out. Even thinking about it, it makes me a little bit squeamish. You remember that episode of Friends where Rachel needs eye drops and they have to physically pin her down on the ground to put them in? Yeah, that's the most relatable hell ever to me. True story, I once failed an eye exam simply because I wouldn't let the optometrist get close enough to actually inspect my eyeballs. I just kept freaking out and going, So as you can imagine, those who have seen the film, that ending, despite being brilliant and a wonderful way to close with a really interesting cliffhanger that poses some fantastic questions to so many potential outcomes, I had to watch it like this. Has he done it yet? Is it over? Has he put it down yet? I can't do this any longer. I just can't. Eyeballs? No, I can't do with them. But nonetheless, that doesn't stop me from giving The Lobster a very well-deserved 10 out of 10. Big thumbs up, Mrs. IMO. I am blown away and I totally see and understand why you rank this quite so highly. I do prefer The Lobster to Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is the other Yorgos Lanthimos film I've seen, and that isn't because Sacred Deer was bad. No, not by any means. It's just that The Lobster felt a tad sharper, a tad smarter, quite a bit funnier in fact. And ultimately I feel like I walked away with so much more to think about and talk about and digest than I did with Sacred Deer. This is a fantastic movie that I'm really excited to watch again. I actually think I will gain more from a revisit of this film, but I definitely recommend this one to you. Check this one out if you haven't already, or if you've already seen it, revisit it because it is well worth the watch. Thank you for watching this review. Please be sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please do hit the comment section as well. Have you seen The Lobster? What do you think about it? Let me know in the comment section below. And of course, if you haven't had enough of this crazy fella, you can always stick on these suggested videos right here and get yourself lost in an IMO wormhole. But if not, take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.